Hi, welcome to class. We're the only two right now, but the other ones will show up eventually, right? I hate my life. I hate my life. A Professor Sunreis Productions!
Hello class, Professor Sunreis here, as promised, at least one day later, sorry, but I still am, as you can probably hear, a little ill, and yesterday my voice was just there yet. I will be showing you guys the goo for the YCS Bologna. Spoiler alert, it was Horus Bystial. I did think about playing just Strangling again, but in the end I would have probably just played Horus Bystial because I put the most time into the list and the most thought. Huge shout out to Santiago, who I built the Worlds list with. He helped me a lot with this list. A lot of the things came from him actually. A lot of key changes actually, which made the deck work in the first place, came from him. So huge shout out to him. The deck wouldn't have been worked without him. He also really pushed me to still go there, even though I had like a 38-degree fever. I don't know, Santiago, if you want to kill me, please don't. But definitely still a huge shout out and thank you to him. And I don't think any Dragon Link Bystial list top, though we of course did have the Runic Bystial list of Joshua Schmidt topping. So we definitely do have some discussion to do on this channel in the upcoming week, but we still have a few other things to talk about. And I don't know why my camera is doing those weird color changes there. Hopefully those will change once, I don't know if they still will be doing that. Anyways, without further ado, don't forget to see past on the subscribe button, leave some feedback down in the comment section below, and let's get right into the video. So, as promised, this is the list. This is 41 card Horus Bystial pile. Reasons why I did play this over Rocket Link, I also did a video on that before, is that I didn't think the Rockets gave in any real edge into the format right now. The only realistic thing which I could see is that the Quick Launch is really good going second into a Rescue Ace board, and also really decent into an Unchained. Against Unchained, you don't need it. Against Rescue Ace, it definitely would have helped, but my thought at least was that Rescue Ace was gonna go a little down in the format and Unchained was gonna go up in representation, so I didn't think I would need to play a sub-engine which was better into the Rescue Ace engine, so I figured I'd just take the very good Unchained matchup I have, the very good Lab matchup I have, the very good Tier matchup I have, and just play the most consistent available deck to just the Horus advantage loop, not the Horus, sorry, the Bystial advantage loop which is available to us. Of course, I mean the big Bystial advantage loop. Of course, in a deck like Runic Bystial, you also have a Bystial advantage loop, but that is a little different. It's not as Bystial focused, and it's just a sub-engine. Here, of course, it is the main engine. Very similar decks, but in the end, they do differ in a few things. And I really liked how this deck played out, and I did try to change from it because the Horus cards do lose a little bit to hand traps. Going -1 and to lose to any hand trap doesn't feel great, but in the end they still offer a grind game through all of them, or the enable and talent, so we did prepare for that as well. And then even if you get hand trap, usually you will still have the ability to play because you still max out on anything dragon, so in the end it's as the same as having the chaos space ashed. You still will be able to play even if the chaos space gets ashed, and if not, it was the only place that you had in the first place. So let's get into the list. We have a 41 card list because Santiago told me so. So we have 3 Rebellion, 3 Sarania. I did max out the 3 Drewsquirm in the end because I was so sure that Unchained was going to be super popular, and it's such a great card and also help with side stacking patterns. And then 1 Magnamid. I did have the Baldric in a long time, but it never came up. I thought, okay, with IP Seal being the end board, a Baldric in theory should come up a crazy amount of time. I had it in for like 1 month of straight playtesting, and it barely came up. So ultimately I decided to kick it because I would just never using it. I would only be signing it out going second, and now I still have the extra Bystial because I play the Drewsquirm, which is of course insane. We only have the 1 regained. I am a huge regain head. It's crazy because I was the biggest Branded Beast stan in the beginning, but with Magnamid at 1, it just never makes sense to go for Branded Beast. Even siding it doesn't make sense in my opinion because you will never go for it. You will only hard draw it, and only go for it if you hard draw the regain, which you don't really want to do, especially going first. You don't want to add additional bricks. It just sucks. So in the end, I will probably never play Branded Beast unless we get into a super heavy Floodgate format. I guess then it would make sense to side deck it or even main deck it, but for now, you will probably never need it. For the Dragon stuff, 3 Seyfried, of course, still the best card in this list. 3 Black Metal, it's a little iffy, but you have to play it for consistency reasons. The ability to have the Red MD into rotation is really helpful. You make it less great in this list than in Dragon Link because you just don't have the tools as Dispater, Striker, Revive stuff, so you cannot recycle through your dragons and graveyard and banish pile as good, but you still have the ability to do so. So having this floating around in your deck is very, very good. Of course, also an insane mill to get your rolls going of a zombie vampire, and then sadly only one chaos base is still one of the best cards, and also good mill. It really, really helps that all of these are good mills. That makes the Horus engine just so much more powerful, and also so much more volatile to hand traps and it whiffing and you crying yourself to sleep. For the rest of the dragons, we have one red MD, we have the Chaos Dragons. These suck to mill, happens a few times, but usually you can play around it, and losing one of them in a mill is not the end of the world. One Samsara Dragon, the absolute fucking goat. I don't know how I could ever play without this. The Rocket deck, which I tried like a few days before the YCS, I did try playing without this, and this card is so insane. Not only all of the grind games it enables and all of the weird game states it lets you get out of, it being a good discard, it being a good mill in this list, and this being able to always be able to banish something in the graveyard to trigger a regain is huge, because I did try like a very cookie cutter rocket list, not a lot of fuss, a lot of non-engine, and I was so struggling to trigger my regain, it was unreal. Especially if you use Safer to add a Lubellion, and that's the only Magnemite, you have nothing to trigger your regain. It is unreal. And if you don't trigger your regain, Bread and Beast arguably is always better to go for. And that's crazy. So this card is fucking insane, and especially here with mills, with everything, it is really, really good. It's my go-to Ravine Sand target if I already have Safer, so having that in there felt very, very good. Also, worst case, it's a Dragon normal summon, which this deck did struggle a little bit, but I think we got around that pretty effectively. Then lastly, one Levy, and also the Chaos Emperor Dragon. This was an addition kind of late. You could also cut this and go to a clean 40. I wouldn't completely hate it, but this card felt very, very, very clean. It helps with the problem which I talked about earlier, that you don't have the ability to cycle all of through your banish and graveyard dragons as much. The Chaos Emperor helps that and gives you a guaranteed time to kill in turn 3. So if you set up your turn, you have your resource loop going, then you add this, because most of the time we already went through a levy, so the levy will be in the graveyard. So we can add this, and then we can use this to add back a Safer, get the levy back. We have all of the big bodies to go for easier OTKs. Definitely very, very helpful. It also, you could argue, okay, you can just cut it then, because you don't need that. You will probably also win games otherwise, and that's correct. But it never bricked me going first. Of course, if you have literally unplayable, it's gonna brick you. But the amount of times then cutting this will save you is very, very slim, because the consistency doesn't really change from 40 to 41 on all of the important pieces. But most importantly, this is such a nice tool to get the ceiling of the deck a little higher, because it is, of course, a little low. And the utility it has is also not that crazy. It really only does one thing. It does that really, really good and very, very efficiently. And the sheer amount of resources this deck enables is really, really threatening for most of the decks in the meta. But it's not the craziest deck. So having the extra pushes this enables, like this by itself being 2 push it once it's alive, is really, really helpful. And I really, really fell in love with this card again. And I missed it when I was playing the standard Rocket deck. Then one Ravine. You could also argue to cut like this whole package and play more non-engine, but I really, really like the coherent game plan of having like a Bystial control-ish playstyle and going into the Romulus, turbing into that with the black metal, and then getting one piece out of my puzzle also almost guaranteed. So we always had either Sacred or Lubellion with basically every hand. So if we draw the other piece, or like a Samsara, because it's the same as Sacred basically, we do get the whole Bystial thing going. We get to our regain, we get to our resource loop, and then we can control the game off that. Going second, these went out a lot, all of them. But going first, they were really, really helpful, and I would not cut them. Especially because Romulus also based a lot of imperms. It's not as important in this list. A lot of times they will think you're just playing random Dragon Link, and imperm or Vela on Romulus is probably one of the better plays against that. And we don't mind as much in this, even if we don't get to our Lubellion. We can just then summon Magnemite in the opponent's turn off the seal, and we hand loop the opponent to begin with. The Horus engine, 3 Imseti, 2 King Sarcophagus, and 1 Quebec-Sunef. So shoutouts to Santiago for telling me to play 2 King Sarcophagus. This was one of the best additions into the deck, being one of the things to get our plays going, especially with the high Bystial amount, being able to unbrick our hands with the Bystials, maybe enabling a Tomb play to be able to play whatsoever, is really, really helpful. it being also one of the few cards which lets us extend. If our Imseti gets Ash, for example, we can go very, very greedy. And if we have like this plus like 3 other cards, we can go Imseti, pitch 1 if we get Ash, and we activate the King Sarcophagus, we probably win on the spot because just such so much value which lays in these. The additional grind these enable is insane. The OTK pushes you have with just a lot of big beat sticks. You can play around Nibiru so easily in turn 3. Summon this, summon Chaos Emperor, summon this is already game with 3 summons. It's unreal. These were really, really, really strong. You do side out the second King Sarcophagus a lot, going second, of course, but in the end, these just really, really helped. And King Sarcophagus to 2 was the best addition to the deck, probably because it helped with consistency, because it let you set up your graveyard for the Bystials and start the plays if you have like very awkward hands. It's a pseudo extender if your Imseti gets Ash, so it makes this a little less of a susceptible card to hand traps. It's very, very great follow-up. It's a good top deck. It just felt overall like a very, very good addition. And for the extra target, I did still play the Quebec because Happy, or like in general, the on-field effects of the Horus cards never came up for me. I don't see them ever coming up because they only basically lose to spot removal, right? So, and the amount of times the opponent has spot removal for your monsters, but not for the spell trap, is very, very, very slim and far between. I can't think of a single meta card. Maybe Fire Kings have that, but probably not. So if they will use spot removal on them, they will probably use spot removal on your King Sarcophagus. And if it's something wide, like a Torrential Tribute or something, or a Daruma Cannon, you don't want to play into them, and you don't want to combo with them on your board. You want to use them efficiently and go for link plays or either Xyz plays. So I don't think playing these for the on-field effect is really impactful if you can use them for your attributes or type, especially if it enables you to play around a zombie vampire against tier, so that you can just go into the Dragon Ravine with this and then use this to go into a rank 8 later on into the combo. Really, really helped so that we don't have to go for zombie vampire. If our hand already is completely stacked, we don't have to risk our opponent milling crazy good and being able to plus them in the on the side. For non-engine, this is where I did some tweaks later on. I was heavy on the talents package. I did cut back on that a little and did add more hand traps. We have 3 Nib, 3 Ash, 2 Veiler, and then 2 talents. Talents, I think mandatory. You could argue to play this at 3 and still cut like one of the Chaos Emperor because it's just so important to be able to extend through an Ash. Especially because the Horus card isn't actually any of the Dragon's pushes. Like draw 2 of the talents is insane. And basically you still have 5 cards in hand, and then you hand loop your opponent already, and you still have every dragon effect which you want. Plus you have a dark in the graveyard to use one of the Bystials to be able to play. So that was really, really helpful. But in the end I wanted to have more hand traps because going second a lot of times I was struggling. But that was mostly on locals against Purely, because Purely is the deck which we just couldn't beat like in the main deck. You just have to make some concessions in this meta, and Purely was my concession. And then I played against a lot of Purely, lost the die roll, and I just didn't really have anything against that and got a little tilted and thought we need to make some changes. But in the end, I think these changes are very, very good. By the way, we do play the Vader over Imperm because we are playing Phantasma on the side, but more on that later. For the extra deck, by the way, I think I said it, 41 cards. For the extra deck, Striker Dragon, Romulus, 2 Seal, especially with Samsara Tribute Summon lines, the second Seal comes up a lot of times. Pisty Triple Burst, this might seem weird, but Pisty Triple Burst really, really helps with going for a lot of darks in the graveyard, so the Levy is always alive, which was one of the problems I had with the deck, especially without the Resonator package. It just really, really sucks ass to not have your Levy alive because it's one of the cornerstones of our combo, and this package just really, really helps because then we can go for relatively standard Dragonlink plays. We can recycle our Save It or our Samsara, which is really good for grind games, of course, and then we can just turn those into a Seal, and we still have the one body, and we basically turn the setups which we have of like Romulus and plus the other 2s, we turn it into the same things for amount of bodies, but we do get 2 darks into the graveyard, and more importantly, we recycle a Safred, so we do get more follow-up, and we do get the graveyard setup we want. Also, Triple Burst sometimes comes up against Unchained, and Pisty comes up as a second link 1 for Striker Dragon if our first striker gets Ash or something like that. So definitely they do have their slots as well, but mostly they came up for this exact line to get a little more sealing into our end board. As we try to do here. It could be weird to use 2 extra deck slots for just slight bit more of sealing and 1 more line of follow-up, but in the end, I never missed anything in the side deck, in the extra deck from testing, so I figured we go for that. For the rest, we have an IP, we have an SP, of course, these are Bay, Dark, Insane, Unicorn, and Access Code. Feels really good to play both SP and Unicorn with an IP because people don't expect it. Sometimes the Unicorn can come in really clutch. So I really liked it. And having 2 Link 3s for the Access Code always feels really good, something which you usually don't have at Dragon Link. And then for the XDs, Atum, this makes our Zombie Vampire better, and especially with 7 Bystials in the main deck, Atum is really good. Milling any Bystial of the Zombie Vampire and having 1 additional Bystial is full combo, so that feels really good. Zombie Vampire, Insane, of course. If it whiffs, it's a skill difference. You blame everyone but yourself or your deck building. Very important. Hope Harbinger. Seems weird to play like Hope Harbinger in a competitive deck 2023, but this came up a lot actually. If you go uncontested, there's still some people which don't play a lot of hand traps. For example, all of the runic variants, they play very little hand traps. So if you can go uncontested against them, you can make as the end board a Seal, IP, Hope Harbinger, and then you can make the Levy hand trap to that plus the regain, and there's like no way any deck beats this, especially because Hope Harbinger fixes both of the weaknesses you could have, where they cannot go into battle phase anymore to run over this unless they have 2 ways to run over something, because they have to attack Hope Harbinger, and then we also have a spell negate for the talents. So usually my way around playing talents, because we don't have a spell trap negate, was that a lot of times they would just go battle phase anyways to force out our disruptions, because these usually deal with 2 bodies if we wanted to. So they go into battle phase so that we only deal with 1 body. That way they wasted their battle phase. We didn't play into talents for the first removal of them, and they cannot kill us anymore. We are a grind game and we win this, right? If they don't do that, we have the luxury of usually dealing with 2 bodies. I didn't upload the Rescue Ace video, but it's in there. A lot of times against Rescue Ace, you will be able to remove 2 bodies. If they talents you, then they already use 2 of their hard ones per turn effects. They use their normal summon, they use their emergency, for example, and they got rid of 1 card in their hand. If they talents you on that point, it is very fine. The talents will hurt definitely, but it's definitely not the end of the world. We still have lots of resources and we will still be able to play. So in the end, it was very fine to be kind of susceptible to talents, but also Hope Harbinger, like I said, helps with that. If we have full combo and they don't hand trap us whatsoever, where the likelihood is higher for them to have the talents, we do have an in-engine answer to talents if we hard draw the Horus engine and have a decent mill. You do have to use Lubellion for the Zombie Vampire probably then, which you a lot of times want to do anyways, and then you use the other Horus plus the Levy for the Hope Harbinger. It does surprisingly amount of times come up plenty, so definitely don't sleep on that. And then lastly, 1 Typhoon. Card is completely insane, came up a lot in testing to just break boards, simplified game states. Seal plus this into a board is basically an FTK or like an OTK. It just really helps breaking boards, especially in a low ceiling deck like this, or lower ceiling I should say, because the end board, like I said, Seal, IP, Hope Harbinger, Levy is definitely not like low ceiling. It's definitely more towards combo than it's towards like control or mid range. Now for the side deck, this is where the spice lies. Actually, it's not really that crazy. We have 1 talents, we have 1 called by. I liked called by because it helped a lot going first with our Ash weakness, but also like randomly good against basically everything. Sometimes it's good against like Engine, for example, against Unchained. It's not really bad. You can set this in going first. It's really helpful. But it also helps against random ass decks. It's good in the mirror against the Seal. It's good against Branded Chimera or Branded in general. So this really helps as like a going second side deck slot against a lot of decks which we couldn't really prepare for because the format is so wide, but while also helping us going first with one of our Engine's weaknesses. 1 Feather Duster, 2 Storm. Wasn't on this for the longest time Santiago probably doesn't know that I was on this, but in the end, because I did make changes with the talents and the Veilers in the main and the side, we do open up 2 slots. So I did play in 2 Storms to be able to have that against random decks, against Flunder, against Unchained. These come in because Storm plus Jerusalem is basically FTK against them as well. So I really like the Storms. I thought about playing 2 droplets to be able to have something against Centurion, but in the end, because we do play 3 Spellbound, I wasn't too scared about that matchup. Together with all of the hand traps which we are playing, I figured I didn't need to over prepare for that. So I think it would be fine. A Centurion was a surprising amount of representation was there for Centurion, but in the end, I don't think it's worth to over prepare for that. In the end, Droplet does the same against Unchained that Lightning Storm does. It deals with the XZs, but we don't have to. Lightning Storm is just a little better against it because you also deal with the Link, right? And you don't have to use your hand cards, you don't have to use the other stuff. So I think Lightning Storm was just better, and I'd rather have better cards against the meta matchup, which I know I will be playing probably at least 2, probably 3 against. Rather than like a Centurion play, which I randomly play against once, and I only really struggle if we lose the die roll. If we win the die roll, the matchup is so free. Now for the rest of the side deck, it's all hand traps. We have the 3rd Veiler. Because we play the Phantasme, we have to play Veiler over Imperm. The only downside of Veiler over Imperm is the talents, but in the end, if they have it, they have it. Or it's Unchained, where Imperm is just insane throughout the XZs, but because we do have a good Unchained matchup, and we have Jerusalem for that, so we can just summon that before, I figured it was fine to go for it. In the end, I don't know, you could also just cut this, but this is like one of the few cards which is really good against Rescue Ace, where it feels really insane to do it. And it also helps against Infernoble and Rescue Ace. Like I said, these are the hardest matchup which we have in my opinion. So having like the best card against that is just really impactful. And then lastly, 3 draw to counter Infernoble or random combo piles like Vanadium. As you can see, or hear, I should say, my voice is getting a little crispier. Like I said, I am not 100% there yet, so I probably won't be uploading another video today because we still have a lot of discussion to do. I just want to go for another deep dive into Rockets versus Horus. I want to go for a deep dive into Runic Bystial and just talk over the overall health of the format, especially from a Dragon player perspective. But I will have to get a little more healthy for that. But for now, I hope you guys enjoyed today's class and we'll have a lot of fun with the goo. Of course, definitely check out the Runic Bystial goo as well. A buddy of mine, like I think 2 days before the YCS, talked about me with it. He was also in the DB Grana video. Shout out to Snatchlast. That he really liked the build, so it was on my radar, especially because one of you guys also linked it to me in the comments. I did put it off of testing it because I was in the preparation for the YCS, and I didn't think it would be that great because I did a few test hands and it felt very awkward. But maybe that's just my no Runic player experience, and as a Runic player you are used to these hands and you know how to play them and you know how resilient they really are. But for me it felt like a very awkward deck, but I guess I got proven wrong and the deck is very capable. We will definitely have to see if this is something which we want to play on this channel as well. But for now, class is dismissed. You guys are free to leave. Professor Sunreis out. Peace.